Have you ever found yourself wide awake at 3 a.m., lying in bed in the soft darkness, not in fear, not in pain, just awake? The house is still. The world outside is quiet. There's no noise, no light, and yet your eyes are open and your mind, somehow, is alive. You glance at the clock. Again, 3:07 a.m. It's not the first time. Maybe not even the 10th. And while it's tempting to see this as a problem, an interruption, or a sign that something is wrong with your body, what if it isn't? What if waking up at 3 a.m. isn't a breakdown of sleep, but a message from within, a whisper from your body or your soul asking to be heard? You see, for many older adults, this early morning awakening has become a quiet companion, an unexpected moment of clarity, solitude, or even discomfort. But it is not random, and you are not alone. In this video, we're going to gently uncover 5 powerful and often overlooked reasons why people over 60 often wake up around 3 a.m. and what these moments may be trying to show you about your health, your habits, and your heart. Some of these reasons are biological, others are deeply emotional, but all of them are rooted in a truth: as we age, our relationship with rest transforms. And rather than fight that shift, we can learn from it. So please stay with me until the end, because what you discover here may change not only the way you sleep, but also how you understand and care for yourself in this sacred stage of life. If this experience resonates with you, if you've ever found yourself awake at that hour, comment 1 below. If you haven't yet, comment 0. I'd really love to know where you are on your journey. And if these words touch something in you, I gently invite you to subscribe and turn on the bell so we never lose this connection. Let's begin. Part 1, the silent shift in your inner clock. I used to sleep like a rock, Harold told me, chuckling softly. Now I wake up before the birds even think about singing. Harold is 71, retired, and healthier than most his age. No pain, no medical emergencies, no late-night worries. Yet, for months now, he's found himself awake at 3:12 a.m., almost like clockwork. No alarm, no noise, just awake. At first, he thought it was a fluke. Then he blamed it on aging. But what Harold and so many others never realize is that this early wake-up might be his body's way of gently resetting itself. You see, as we grow older, something subtle but powerful happens to our internal body clock, also known as the circadian rhythm. It begins to shift earlier. Scientists call it advanced sleep phase syndrome, but most people just know it as going to bed earlier and waking up too early. It's not that we suddenly can't sleep in, it's that our biology starts winding down sooner in the evening, especially when life becomes quieter, less commuting, fewer responsibilities, more time spent at home. Without the cues of a busy day, the body starts dimming the lights a little sooner each night. And when we fall asleep earlier, it makes sense that we'd wake up earlier too. This isn't a disorder. It's not a failure. In fact, it's natural. Think of your body like a grandfather clock. As the years pass, the pendulum doesn't stop, it just swings on a new rhythm, softer and earlier. And that rhythm is influenced by so many gentle forces: dinner at 5:30, the evening news at 6, a recliner that's just a little too comfortable by 8. By the time 3 arrives, your body may have already completed its cycle of rest. You're not broken, you're simply operating on a schedule that no longer matches the clock on the wall. When Harold began adjusting his routine, reading later into the evening, taking a short walk after dinner, and avoiding long naps, he noticed something profound. His body started sleeping longer into the morning, not because it was forced, but because it was gently encouraged to. So, if you find yourself waking up at 3 a.m. and wondering why, consider this: it might just be your internal timekeeper quietly shifting into a new chapter of life. And once you understand that, you can stop fighting the clock and start dancing with it. Up next, let's explore one of the most powerful and overlooked players in your sleep story. A tiny hormone that fades with age, but carries big weight in your rest: melatonin. Part 2, Melatonin, the fading guardian of night. There's a silent rhythm that governs our nights. It doesn't come from the ticking of a clock or the fading sound of the evening news. It comes from within a quiet chemical messenger called melatonin. Melatonin is often described as the body's natural sleep hormone. It's what signals to the brain that it's time to rest. As night falls and darkness settles in, melatonin levels begin to rise, gently guiding us into slumber. In youth, this process feels effortless. We fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up refreshed. But as we age, this internal rhythm softens. Melatonin production naturally declines, not dramatically, but enough to make a difference. And for many older adults, that difference becomes visible around 3 At that hour, the body has already moved through several sleep cycles. But without enough melatonin to sustain those deeper stages of rest, the brain begins to shift toward light awareness. Not quite awake, but no longer fully asleep. That's when the eyes open. The mind stirs, and silence fills the room. This isn't your fault, and it doesn't mean your sleep is broken. It means your chemistry is changing quietly, naturally, and in a way that deserves compassion, not frustration. To make matters more delicate, melatonin is highly sensitive to light. Even small amounts, a hallway bulb, a digital clock's glow, or the soft flicker of a street lamp can suppress its release. The older we get, the more reactive our bodies become to these cues. What was once a harmless flicker of brightness may now send a subtle signal: it's time to wake up. The modern world isn't designed for aging sleep. Blue light from screens, inconsistent bedtimes, and quiet, creeping anxiety all reduce our natural melatonin levels, often without us noticing. But awareness changes everything. When we begin to understand this shift, we stop blaming ourselves. We can make changes gently, without shame: a darker bedroom, a quieter evening, a consistent sleep routine. These small choices help nudge melatonin back into its natural flow. And perhaps, more importantly, they remind us that our sleep is still sacred, even if it looks different now. Because sleep in later life is not just a function of biology, it's an act of trust: trust in our bodies, trust in the cycles of change, and trust that even in the silence of 3 a.m., we are not lost. We are simply adjusting. Up next, let's step away from hormones for a moment and look at how your daily routines, those small habits you repeat without thinking, might be quietly shaping your sleep in ways you never expected. Part 3, the hidden impact of daily routines on sleep. Sleep doesn't just begin when we close our eyes. It begins hours before that in the way we spend our afternoons, the way we wind down in the evening, and even in how we nourish our bodies throughout the day. As life slows down with age, so do our daily rhythms. The routines that once anchored our energy: morning commutes, social appointments, evening activities begin to shift or fade altogether. And when those routines change, our internal clock listens. The body is deeply responsive to repetition. It follows cues like mealtimes, light exposure, and movement. And when those cues begin arriving earlier in the day, like eating dinner at 5 p.m., sitting in dim light by 6, or falling asleep in the recliner before 8, the body responds accordingly. It assumes this is nighttime now, which means the body also assumes that rest is complete earlier, often by 2 or 3 a.m. This transition is rarely dramatic. It's soft, gradual, so gentle that we don't notice it happening until we're staring at the ceiling in the middle of the night, wondering why we're wide awake. The truth is, your daily rhythm trains your nightly rhythm. When structure disappears from our days, the brain loses many of the natural signals that help it know when to rise and when to rest. Without them, the body begins creating its own schedule, often one that no longer aligns with your preferred wake-up time. Even small habits, repeated over time, can have surprising effects. Long afternoon naps can reduce sleep pressure at night. Lack of sunlight in the morning can delay melatonin release in the evening. Too little physical activity can leave the body understimulated and the mind overactive. None of this is about fault. It's about gentle awareness. Once we recognize that our current rhythms may be working against the rest we want, we're empowered to adjust them, not with drastic changes, but with kindness. A short walk after lunch, a few moments in bright natural light each morning, a calming ritual that begins, not ends the day. Reclaiming rhythm isn't about recreating a busy schedule. It's about listening, about inviting your body back into a pattern that supports, not sabotages your rest. Because sleep, like life, depends on rhythm. And rhythm is something we can choose, one small act at a time. Coming up next, not all awakenings are caused by routine. Some arise from discomfort, subtle, quiet signals from the body that say, please take a closer look. Let's explore how physical discomfort may be waking you at 3 a.m. and what you can do about it. Part 4. When the body speaks through discomfort. Sometimes waking up at 3 a.m. isn't about habits or hormones. It's about the body trying to speak. As we age, our bodies change not only in appearance, but in sensitivity. The resilience we once took for granted softens, and discomforts that once went unnoticed begin to rise to the surface, especially in the stillness of night. Nighttime can amplify sensations that the busyness of the day conceals. When the world is quiet and the distractions are few, the body begins to whisper, a dull ache in the lower back, a tightness in the knee, a burning in the chest, a sudden dryness in the mouth. None of these signals are necessarily dangerous, but they are real, and they are often enough to pull us out of sleep just as deeply as a loud sound would. One of the most common reasons older adults wake in the early hours is physical discomfort, and the most frequent sources are surprisingly ordinary stiff joints from arthritis, the need to use the bathroom more often due to changes in bladder function, a reaction to temperature shifts in the room, side effects from medications, such as increased sensitivity, dry mouth, or nighttime restlessness. These may seem small in isolation, but at 3 a.m., when the body is in its most vulnerable and unguarded state, even the smallest irritation can disrupt rest. This does not mean the body is failing. In fact, it means the body is doing exactly what it was designed to do: signal, protect, respond. These early morning wake-ups can be seen not as interruptions, but as invitations to pay attention more gently and more often. Sometimes it's a matter of adjusting your sleeping position. Other times, it may involve speaking to a doctor about a medication or adjusting your evening habits, like how late you eat or what you drink before bed. But most importantly, it means learning to honor your body's messages instead of fearing or resenting them. Each physical signal, no matter how small, is part of a deeper conversation, a request for support, a reminder to slow down, an opportunity to respond with care instead of judgment. And the more we tune into these messages, the more we can begin to make changes that help restore comfort, not just to the body, but to the entire experience of rest. Because healing doesn't just come from ignoring discomfort, it begins when we say to our body, I'm listening. In the next part, we'll shift from the body to the mind and explore how emotional restlessness, the kind that rises in the stillness of night, may be quietly shaping your 3 a.m. awakenings. Part 5. The mind that doesn't sleep, emotional restlessness at night. Not all awakenings come from the body. Some begin in the heart. The hours between midnight and dawn are unlike any other. They hold a particular kind of silence, so soft, so still that even the thoughts we've tucked away during the day begin to stir. At 3 a.m., the mind is no longer preoccupied with errands, conversations, or obligations. The noise of daily life fades, and in that hush, something deeper surfaces. It may not be loud. It may not even feel urgent, but it is present. You might lie there in the darkness, not in pain, not in fear, but with a vague sense that something inside you is unsettled. An old memory, a word left unsaid, a moment you wish had ended differently. This kind of restlessness doesn't always have a name. It doesn't always bring tears or clarity. Sometimes It's simply a soft ache, a quiet reminder of what once was, or what still matters. As we grow older, emotional depth becomes more pronounced, not less. The years may have brought wisdom and strength, but they also carry accumulated stories, some of which never fully left us. At night, those stories ask to be heard. There is no shame in this. In fact, it may be one of the most honest parts of aging, that in the quiet hours, our hearts become more tender, more reflective, more open. Emotional restlessness can come from many sources: the natural grief that accompanies loss, whether recent or long past, worry about loved ones, even if nothing is wrong, a shift in identity after retirement or widowhood, or simply the awareness that time, too, is quietly passing. These aren't problems to be solved. They are experiences to be acknowledged. Rather than trying to silence them, we can meet them with gentle rituals: writing down a thought, whispering a prayer, breathing deeply, not to chase sleep, but to hold space for what the heart is holding. Because sometimes, and the soul doesn't want to fall back asleep. It wants to speak and to be met with kindness. Understanding this kind of restlessness not only brings us closer to ourselves, it also allows sleep to return, not through force, but through grace. Coming up next, we'll explore the role of loneliness in nighttime awakenings and how the absence of noise can amplify our need for connection, even in the dark. Part 6. When loneliness whispers in the quiet hours. There is a kind of silence that feels warm, like the hush of a peaceful evening, the soft turning of a book's page, or the quiet breath of someone you love sleeping beside you. But there is another kind of silence that feels different. It is the silence of absence. For many older adults, especially those who live alone or have experienced loss, the hours between midnight and dawn are not only quiet, they are hollow. And it's in that hollowness that loneliness begins to speak. During the day, it's easy to stay occupied. There are errands to run, gardens to tend, shows to watch, calls to return. But at 3 a.m., the house is still, the phone is silent, the distractions are gone, and what remains is the quiet awareness. It's just me here. This kind of loneliness is not always loud or desperate. Often, it's soft, subtle, a quiet yearning for a voice, a hand, a presence. And though it may not come with tears, it can stir the heart awake just as forcefully as any physical discomfort. Loneliness in older age isn't just a matter of missing people. It's often the result of life's natural transitions. Children growing up and moving away. Friends become busy, distant, or simply gone. A partner no longer sleeping in the bed beside you. Or a life that once felt full, now quieter in ways no one warned you about. This doesn't mean something is wrong with you. In fact, it means your heart still longs for connection, even after years of strength and independence, and that longing is deeply human. The 3 a.m. hour has a way of magnifying distance, not just physical, but emotional. It can remind us of voices we haven't heard, hugs we haven't felt, or simple companionship that once filled the room. But here's the gentle truth: even in that loneliness, there is hope. Because just as the night amplifies solitude, it can also invite intimacy with yourself. This is the time to write that letter you never sent, to whisper a prayer to someone you miss, to hold your own hand and say, "I'm still here." It might also be the time to reach out, slowly and intentionally, not to fill the silence completely, but to remind yourself that connection is still possible through a morning message, a shared memory, or even a quiet note left for someone else to find. Loneliness may visit in the night, but it does not define you. You are not forgotten. You are not invisible. You are simply a soul still longing for meaning, for presence, for peace. And even at 3 a.m., that longing is sacred. In the next part, we'll explore how even something as simple as hunger or low blood sugar, often overlooked, can quietly wake the body and keep it from returning to rest. Part 7. The hidden hunger that disrupts the night. Not all awakenings are emotional. Not all are caused by pain. Some come from something so quiet, so subtle, we don't even recognize it at first. Hunger. In the early stages of life, hunger is loud and unmistakable. It growls, it pulls, it demands attention. But as we age, hunger can become quieter, especially at night. It doesn't always show up as a craving or a stomach ache. Sometimes it simply whispers to the body, "Wake up, something's missing." Many older adults eat dinner earlier in the evening, 5 or 6 p. Feels natural, even comforting. And for good reason, digestion slows with age, and heavy late meals can lead to discomfort. But when there's a long gap between dinner and morning, the body's blood sugar can dip during the night, especially during the early morning hours, when the brain is still active even in sleep. That gentle drop in glucose may not feel like typical hunger. It may not come with a growl or a gnawing sensation. Instead, it often shows up as restlessness, a sense of alertness, or a sudden need to get up without knowing why. The body relies on stable energy to maintain sleep. When that energy dips, even slightly, the body shifts out of deeper sleep stages. And once that shift happens, especially around 2 or 3 a.m., returning to restful slumber becomes harder. Caffeine also plays a quiet role here. As the metabolism slows with age, even coffee or tea consumed in the early afternoon can linger in the system, delaying melatonin release and making the body more vulnerable to small awakenings later in the night. These aren't mistakes, they're patterns. And the beauty of patterns is that they can be adjusted. A light, protein-rich evening snack like a few nuts, a slice of whole grain toast, or a small piece of cheese can help stabilize blood sugar through the night. More importantly, it sends a signal to the body you are nourished. You are safe. You can rest. The goal isn't to eat more, it's to eat more intentionally. Because food, at its heart, is not just fuel. It's comfortable. It's rhythm. It's medicine. And when used gently, it can be one of the most natural ways to restore peace to your nights. In the next part, we'll explore something many people overlook: the environment itself. Light, temperature, and noise, all of which quietly shape the way we sleep, especially as we grow older. Part 8. When the environment works against your sleep. We often think of sleep as something that happens inside us, a matter of thoughts, hormones, or emotions. But sleep is also shaped by what surrounds us. The environment we sleep in is not neutral. It speaks to the body in ways that become more pronounced with age. And often, it's those faint, barely noticeable changes in the bedroom that quietly unravel the stillness of our nights. As we grow older, our sensory thresholds shift. What once seemed insignificant, a bit of light, a soft hum, a slight change in temperature, can now be enough to wake us from a deep rest. Light is one of the most powerful environmental cues the body responds to. Even a small source of brightness, a hallway light under the door, the glow of a digital clock, or the faint flicker from a window, can signal to the brain that it's morning, suppressing melatonin and nudging the body toward alertness. The same goes for sound. A passing car, the hum of an appliance, or even distant conversation can feel louder, more intrusive. Not because the world has gotten noisier, but because the aging brain is less able to tune distractions out during sleep. Temperature is another silent influencer. As we age, our body's ability to regulate temperature during sleep declines. A room that's just a few degrees too warm or too cold can cause micro-awakenings, brief shifts in brain activity that prevent deeper rest without us even realizing it. Even the air quality in the room, the presence of dust, dryness, or poor circulation can subtly affect breathing, creating discomfort that disturbs the night. What's important to understand is this: these aren't overreactions. They are signs of a body that is still alert, still responsive, still doing its best to protect and balance itself in a changing world. By gently adjusting our environment, we give the body what it needs to do, what it already wants to do: rest. Darken the room as much as possible. Keep it quiet or use soft white noise if needed. Maintain a cool, stable temperature. Choose soft, breathable bedding. Minimize digital light and movement near the bed. These are not luxuries, they are acts of care. And in offering them to ourselves, especially as we age, we are not being picky or demanding. We are honoring the sensitivity that comes with wisdom, the body's quiet way of asking for respect, comfort, and peace. Part 9. Turning 3 a.m. into sacred space. There's a moment when the world is still, the sky is dark, and everyone else seems to be sleeping when you find yourself awake. Again. It's easy to feel frustrated at that moment, to look at the clock, sigh, and think, why now? But what if we asked a different question? What if, instead of asking, why am I awake, we gently wondered, what is this hour here to show me? Because maybe, just maybe, 3 isn't a mistake. Maybe it's an invitation. In many ancient traditions, the hours just before dawn are considered a sacred time. Monks wake to pray, poets rise to write. Mystics call it the hour of the soul when the veil between the outer world and our inner world grows thin. And perhaps in this stage of life, that same sacred space is opening up to you not to disturb you, but to return you to something deeper. There's a kind of quiet at 3 a.m. that we don't find anywhere else. It's not the quiet of sleep. It's not the quiet of loneliness. It's the quiet of clarity. At that hour, the noise of the day is gone. The expectations, the rush, the distractions all have faded, and what remains is something tender, still, and real you. This is the time when the thoughts you usually silence have room to speak. The questions you've carried for years float to the surface. The feelings you've ignored, postponed, or tucked away come gently knocking. You may remember someone you lost long ago. You may feel a longing to connect, to forgive, or to be seen. You may hear the quiet echo of your own spirit, asking, are you still listening? Rather than resisting that moment, rushing to fix it or medicate it away, what if you embraced it? What if you let 3 a.m. become your soft chapel, your personal sanctuary? A place where healing doesn't need word, only presence. That doesn't mean staying awake forever. It means allowing the moment to be what it is. Instead of judging it, you might simply sit up and breathe, or whisper a few kind words to yourself. You might place a hand over your heart and feel it beating still strong, still here. You might light a candle, say a prayer, or open a journal and write just one true sentence. Not because you need to solve anything, but because you are worthy of being with yourself, even in the dark. Sometimes, what keeps us from sleep is not anxiety or illness. It's an unspent presence. Moments we haven't given ourselves. Conversations we've never had with our own soul. The body wakes us, so the heart can be heard. And often, once we listen gently, without pressure, sleep returns. Not because we forced it, but because we allowed what needed attention to be held. This, too, is healing. To wake up and not reach for a solution, but for silence. To stop measuring sleep in hours and start measuring it in peace. To realize that rest isn't just about shutting the body down, it's about opening the spirit up. If you begin to see your 3 a.m. moments this way, they lose their edge. They become less about interruption and more about invitation. Invitation to reconnect with something sacred inside you. Invitation to reflect, to grieve, to celebrate, or to simply be. And even if you still wake up tomorrow night at that same quiet hour, something will be different. You'll no longer feel like a victim of sleep. You'll feel like a keeper of the quiet, a witness to your own soul's gentle stirring, a companion to the stillness. Because what we call insomnia may sometimes be something else entirely. It may be a soft doorway into presence, a sacred nudge to return to yourself, a reminder that even at 3 a.m., especially at 3 a.m., you are not alone. You are alive. You are feeling, you are remembering that your soul, like your sleep, doesn't run on a perfect schedule. It moves in rhythm. It speaks in whispers. It wakes when it must. And you are wise enough now to listen. In our final chapter, we'll bring together all these pieces, body, mind, emotion, and rhythm and reflect on what these early morning awakenings may gently reveal about this sacred stage of your life. Part 10. What 3 a.m. wake-ups reveal about the journey of growing older. At first glance, waking up at 3 a.m. might seem like nothing more than a nuisance, an interruption, a flaw in the system of sleep, something to fix or to avoid. But the truth is, when we look more closely, more gently, we begin to see something different. We begin to see that these early awakenings are not merely about sleep, they are about life itself. Each time your eyes open in the stillness of night, it is not just a biological response. It is also a reflection, a mirror of the deeper rhythm you now live by. The rhythm of aging, yes, but also the rhythm of becoming. Because growing older isn't about fading, it's about unfolding. And in that unfolding, the body, the heart, and the spirit speak in new ways. Waking at 3 a.m. tells us many things. If we're willing to listen, it tells us that the body is changing. The circadian rhythm, once aligned with youth and speed, has shifted like the tide pulling gently toward a new shore. Melatonin, that quiet sleep messenger, arrives differently now. The internal clock ticks to a softer, earlier beat. It tells us that our habits matter more than we think, that the way we move through our days when we eat, how we wind down, what light surrounds us gently teaches the body how to rest. That structure isn't just about productivity, it's about peace. It reminds us that the body still speaks, even in the dark, through aches, through discomfort, through a full bladder or dry mouth. It reminds us that it is still alive, still sensing, still doing its best to care for us, and that we, in return, must learn to care more tenderly for it. It reveals that our emotions are still with us, not gone, not forgotten. That grief has its own clock, and that memory doesn't sleep just because the lights are out. That the heart keeps time in a way that only stillness can reveal. It whispers that loneliness is real and that it's okay to name it. That connection, be it spiritual, emotional, or physical, is not a weakness. It's a deep human need. And that even in solitude, there are ways to reach out, even if only to your own soul. It shows us that our nourishment still matters, and that hunger, however subtle, still shapes our experience. That caring for the body doesn't stop at dinner, but continues through the night, with gentleness, rhythm, and balance. It reminds us that our environment shapes our rest, that light, sound, air, and temperature all have a voice, and that with small adjustments, we can make space for sleep to return not with force, but with welcome. And perhaps most importantly, these wake-ups reveal that we are not broken. We are simply human, and we are changing. To grow older is to live in cycles of light and dark, of activity and stillness, of remembering and releasing. And 3M, though inconvenient, can be part of that sacred cycle. It is not the enemy of rest. It is the companion of awareness. It may ask you to rise not in body, but in spirit, to sit in the silence and notice, who am I now? What have I lived through? What do I need to hear, to feel, to honor before the sun returns? These are not small questions. They are the questions of someone who has earned the right to ask them, and they do not require answers, only presence, only space. So, the next time you wake at 3 a.m., don't rush to label it. Don't call it insomnia. Don't scold your body or fight the moment. Instead, pause, breathe, place your hand over your heart and say, this, too, is part of me. Because it is. It is part of your wisdom, part of your becoming, part of the quiet miracle of being alive, still learning, still adjusting, still listening. Waking in the night is not a failure. It's a doorway. And behind that doorway may be rest, or reflection, or simply a few moments of being present to your life as it is, not as it was, not as it should be, but as it beautifully is. In that, there is healing. In that, there is peace. In that, there is the kind of rest no sleep can provide, the rest that comes from being whole. Up next, in the final reflection, we'll return to where we began. We'll take everything we've uncovered and bring it gently home to the heart, to the body, and to the spirit. Let's close this journey with grace. Closing reflection. In the quiet hours, we find ourselves. So here we are. We began with a question that many silently ask in the darkness. Why do I keep waking up at 3 a.m.? And through this gentle journey together, we've discovered that this question holds far more than frustration. It holds a map, a quiet guide through the changing landscape of aging, healing, and rediscovering who we are in the stillness. We've talked about circadian rhythms, fading melatonin, and how the body shifts its sleep cycle with age. We've uncovered the hidden impact of our routines, the soft signals of physical discomfort, and the subtle whisper of emotional unrest. We've reflected on loneliness, on hunger that doesn't feel like hunger, on light and sound and air and memory. And most of all, we've asked, what if waking up at 3 a isn't something wrong, but something meaningful? Because growing older doesn't mean becoming less. It means becoming more aware, more tender, more present to the small signals that youth never taught us to notice. Your body is not betraying you. It is adapting, adjusting, continuing the sacred work of protecting you, even in the night. Your heart is not burdening you. It is remembering, sorting, asking to be heard. When the world is finally quiet enough to listen, and your spirit is wiser than ever. It knows that stillness has power, that silence is not empty, that presence, even in the early morning, is a kind of prayer. So tonight, when you lie down, and if your eyes open once again at 3:04, in the hush of darkness, pause, don't rush to judgment, don't reach for blame. Instead, try asking, what is this moment offering me? Is it a message from the body? Is it an old thought surfacing for closure? Is it simply a call to sit with yourself for a few breaths, to return gently to the rhythm of life? There is no single answer. But there is always meaning when we choose to meet the moment with softness, because at this stage of life, everything becomes more sacred. Not because we're fragile, but because we finally know how to see, how to feel, how to be still, and recognize this too is part of living. In fact, maybe is not the problem we once thought. Maybe it's the teacher we never expected. A teacher that says, slow down, you've come far. Now is the time to listen. So if this journey through sleep and awareness has touched something in you, if something here made you pause, nod, or feel less alone, I invite you to share in the comments below which part of this story stayed with you the most. What did 3 a mommy quietly teach you about yourself? I read every word, and your voice matters. And if this video brought you comfort, please subscribe and turn on the bell. Not for me, but for you, so you don't miss the next chapter in this unfolding conversation between age and understanding. Because the next story we share may take you even deeper. It might bring more answers, or simply more peace. In our next video, we'll explore the evening rituals that help the heart unwind, the body release tension, and the spirit feel safe enough to rest fully no matter what hour the clock strikes. Dear friend, thank you for being here. Thank you for opening your heart to these quiet truths. Thank you for honoring the journey you're on, one breath, one night, one awakening at a time. Because aging is not about disappearing. It is about becoming visible to yourself. And in the silence of 3 maybe, just maybe, you are finally beginning to see who you really are. A soul with stories, a heart that still longs, a body that still listens, and a spirit that still shines in the dark.